Howdy guys, Radio Magic here. I hope you're all having a fantastic morning, day, afternoon or evening, wherever you are and whatever you are up to. Today we are back testing on the channel, is Control viable when climbing the ladder in Historic and trying to get to Mythic, if that is what you are trying to do, or maybe you're just trying to counter all of your opponent's spells and make their lives miserable. Either way, this is probably the video for you. So we've done a lot of Azorius on the channel recently, and I'm fully aware of that, but Strixhaven has brought some fantastic new additions to the list that I think really push blue-white's power level. And we're going to skip the deck tech because this is a pretty standard blue-white list. Not much has changed from the previous lists we played on the channel, outside of a few cards, but you can see these in front of you right now. You'll be able to check out a link to the deck tech or deck description in the description down below. I'll get my words out eventually. So go check that out to see the changes that we made from the last Azorius list we played. But there are some few new additions that I think are really pushing Azorius's power, and I'll go over them really quickly and then we'll jump into some games and make this video as short as possible, since we'd like to play 5 games or 4 if we don't have time, but we'll see what time's looking like. So Memory Lapse, I think, is a fantastic new card that has been added with Strixhaven. It's one of the Mystical Archives cards, and I think, just on a side note, this art is gorgeous, looks very beautiful. I love this, hence why it's our deck box art at the same time. But 2-mana instant, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard. So when I first saw Memory Lapse, I thought, this isn't that great. Your opponent's going to draw that card next turn and then just cast it again, and you're in the same problem you were in last time. But you've got to remember, because we're putting that spell on top of our opponent's library instead of back into their hand, this is a 1-for-1 trade. We're breaking even on card advantage there. And because it's got no restriction like Censor, it is a quote-unquote hard counter spell in a way. In a way, obviously. Don't give me too much hate in the comments, because obviously your opponent is going to draw that on their next turn. But for anyone who has casted an Aethergust, or had one cast on them, will know that even when you put the card back on top of your library, that doesn't feel too great a lot of the time. I've seen a lot of players, they put it on the bottom, they'd rather have a fresh draw a lot of the time, especially if the card that is countered is not that impactful. Well, Memory Lapse doesn't give your opponent that choice, and there is no restriction on colour, or your opponent can pay a certain amount of mana. Your opponent will put that card back on top of their library if it is countered, which means you essentially time lock them for a turn, which is really, really strong. And on top of Absorb, I feel like this is like I said, kind of like a hard counter spell, but normally 1 turn is all you need. And if you've got like Field of Ruin down or something like that, then Memory Lapse, you can obviously counter the thing, put it back on top, and then Field of Ruin that card away if you're not interested in your opponent having that. Also, if you like counter, for example, an Ultimatum, because I know the Ultimatum lists are going around quite a lot, you've just traded a 7-mana sorcery for your 2-mana instant, which feels quite good in a lot of situations. You know your opponent's going to have to draw that on their next turn. Maybe we can use our second Mystical Archive card to find an answer to that Ultimatum or whatever you countered before your opponent draws that again. And a nice little segue into that, since the second Mystical Archive card we are playing is Brainstorm, a card that I didn't necessarily think would be too strong in Historic, since Historic's not known for its fetch land capacity. In older formats, Brainstorm's more powerful because you have the ability to draw 3 cards, put 2 back on top, and then you can shuffle them away and potentially draw new cards if that's what you want to do. The options we have are Field of Ruin and Fable Passage, so I have made some concession in the mana basis with Fable Passage. I feel like it's worth it. The power of Brainstorm is enormous. It's really hard to understate how strong this card is, or how strong I feel this card is. It's not insane because it's like an upgraded version of Opt in a way. This is not a card that you can keep a 1-lander Brainstorm, because if you draw 2 non-land cards, that's over, you're out of the game. Unless obviously you have a Fable Passage and you have 2 lands, of course, you can do some shenanigans with that. But yeah, Brainstorm I think is really, really powerful. I think it really shines in the late game rather than fixing your draws early game, though it can do that. Turn 5, turn 6, when you need to find your Teferi, your Cast Out, Wrath of God, your Grafdigger's Cage, a counter spell. Brainstorm essentially reading draw 3 cards when you're looking for an answer. It's just really, really strong, setting up your next draws. And it can also protect you against Four.Vs, which is always an additional plus, since Four.Vs and Inquisition of Kozilek is running around quite a bit. So being able to protect your key threats from that at the same time is pretty good. So yeah, Brainstorm is something. Let me know what you think in the comments down below on Brainstorm and Memory Lapse. especially Brainstorm, because like I said, it is an upgraded version of Oct. To me, it feels really strong, and hopefully in the games that we play, you will see what I mean by that when you're trying to find your answers. But at the same time, there are definitely moments that Brainstorm does not shine, and you put 2 cards back on top and you just feel really sad about it. You've got no way to shuffle them away. Or you need to hit lands and you're not hitting lands. So like I said, not great in all situations, but I think strong enough, especially in the late game, that we can find them answers that we want. Like I said, I'm not going to go over a deck tech since it's a pretty standard blue-white list. You can check with them down in the description below. A few other cards that I will just go over quickly, or one other card that I'll go over because we're testing it in the sideboard, is Test of Talents. 2 mana, counter target instant or sorcery, and then you get to like Lost Legacy your opponent's deck, graveyard, and hand. This is something I'm testing since ultimatums are massive at the moment, and I'd really like to, and I've done it a few times with climbing, and it feels really strong. I had one opponent that just scooped the whole game to me Test of Talenting them at game 2, and their ultimatum, they tapped down for it, and yeah, get rid of all of them. They're left with obviously a handful of bombs, since most cards in our opponent's deck in the ultimatum list are just full of bombs, but we can normally deal with them as they come, as long as Fort Distortion is not a thing. I'm going to say that now. For people who have watched a few videos on the channel when I play Control, Fort Distortion is one of the cards I hate the most. 6 mana, sorcery, cannot be countered. You exile all non-land cards from your opponent's hand and graveyard. When you're sitting on a load of counter spells, that does not feel good. But anyway, if your opponent does not have Fort Distortion and you get to Test of Talent your opponent's ultimatum, it feels pretty strong. That being said, I think if you were going to take this list to a tournament or you were going to play it super, super competitively, Test of Talents would probably not be in the board. I personally would probably replace this for another Mystical Dispute, maybe 4th Veto if you really want to go up on the counter spells. But I think if you're trying to play against the Sultai ultimatum lists, then there's probably better options you could pick. So we can always discuss them down in the comments if that's something you're interested in talking about. But Test of Talents, I think, is fun to play, and we're going to give it a shot. But I don't necessarily think it's the most competitive card in the world. So that being said, a little bit of an ad-lib intro here. Tried to go over it as fast as I can so we can get on to some games. Like I said, I think the list has been really strong. We're going to play 4 or 5 games back-to-back, depending on time and how long the video is going to be. And we're not going to edit any of the games out, regardless of misplays or how we do. You'll get to see them all and get a really realistic representation of how the list does. And like I said, we're at the end bit of Platinum at the moment. I think Platinum 2 or Platinum 1. So actually, this is going to be a realistic representation of how Blue-White does when climbing, and hopefully we can get into Diamond. But like I said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of it. Are the numbers correct for things you might change? And let me know what your opinion is of Brainstorm in a non-fetchland heavy format such as Historic. But I'm going to shut up now. I'll catch you again at the end of the wrap-up. Okay, so some Blue-White Azorius in Historic, and I think we're going to keep this hand. Really match dependent, and hopefully our opponent's not too fast. That being said, we're against Gruul, so it's probably over already. Especially with a hand like this. Gruul, yeah, depends how fast they are. If our opponent goes, okay, just a Gallia, no Burning Tree Emissary. So, yeah, feel like we're just going to be too slow here. This matchup is normally something that's over relatively quickly, one way or the other. We have a pretty basic game plan here, though. We're going to counter our opponent's next threat, next turn. Oof. Ooh. Okay. Just taking casual 6 here, taking 8 on our opponent's next turn, which puts us in a really dangerous situation. Since our opponent could kill us with a Bone Crusher Giant, or they could... I guess Embercleave's okay for us, because we get to counter the Embercleave. But we are just dead to a Bone Crusher Giant. Yeah, so I assume our opponent just holds up Stomp here. Yeah, I mean... we're dead either way. We're dead to a hasty threat. I don't feel good about our situation. Yep. That's a really good example of why Gruul is a pretty difficult matchup, especially on the draw. But against Gruul, we do have some pretty good tools. So we're going to bring in these Ether Gusts. Cage, no good. Shark Typhoon, a little bit expensive, though I still think it's okay. Can maybe cut some cast outs, some of our pretty expensive interaction. And I don't think Narset's great in this matchup. She can find us some threats or some answers to what our opponent's up to. Apart from that, maybe Search Rescanter is something we don't want. Maybe we'd rather have just Narset instead of Search. Apart from that, yeah, though, we've got our Devout Decrees, Aether Gusts. And yeah, just run it like that and see how we go. Okay, so we get to go first this time against Gruul, and this hand looks exceptional, so we'll keep this. Do we Baffling End our opponent's Lan or Elves? Probably not, since we can slow our opponent down with Memory Lapse and then finish off with a Wrath. Our opponent's mulliganing to 5. I think even against a 7, I like this hand. I have found that this match is very, very dependent on who goes first and dependent on how fast our opponent's hand is. Yeah. I think we're just going to allow our opponent to have that and we'll just Memory Lapse the next thing they do. Yeah, like that. Just buying ourselves some time before we can hit this Wrath of God. Can play around Sensor. Could cycle and make a 1-1. Just to try and hit our land drops. It doesn't do much against Gruul Spellbreaker, but... yeah, I think... Can Memory Lapse this, which is fine, but we do need to hit our land drops to be able to cast this Wrath, and we do have the Baffling End to be able to answer the Gruul Spellbreaker anyway, so I'll probably just let this resolve. We won't soak up the damage with the Gruul Spellbreaker. We'll save the 1-1 for potentially blocking a Bone Crusher Giant or something. But try and make sure we hit our lands. So, can board wipe here? Think we'll leave it. So you could take 3 from the Gruul Spellbreaker for 1 more turn, cycle Sensor. Yeah, let's attack. Since we're not blocking. I guess this allows our opponent to get him the Lan or Elves if they want to. Maybe it's a bit greedy and we should just be wiping away the board here. Yeah, 100% should have held back the Shark just to block the Lan or Elves. So let's cycle. Yeah, I think I like Devout Decree above Baffling End, just to be able to get the Scry. Farmland, tap land. Yeah, I'll take any land at this point. And we'll hold this back to block. Yeah, I mean, it's going to slow our opponent down quite a bit. Our opponent can spend their next turn just casting that if they'd like. No. I mean, we're getting our 1 first. Yeah, I probably should have put the irrigated farmland on bottom. Opponent just going to shock here. Can do it now while we're tapped down. Makes sense. So yeah, let's just cast Teferi and hold up our Aether Gust. And providing our opponent doesn't have any insane madness, then I think we're okay. Just gonna put that back on top. Protect our Teferi. Okay, so opponent's missing lands, so I think this is actually a reason to baffling end this land or Elves, and then our opponent can't questing beast on the next turn.
Keep up the pace.
So yeah, let's baffling end. And we tuck this away, we can still activate Castle Warden Vale. So a little bit rocky against Gruul, but overall worked out okay. I think I actually do want cast outs. And cut like a Narset. Maybe like a Sensor as well. Yeah, I think I want the cast outs for questing beasts. Being able to answer them at instant speed is pretty important. Yeah, we'll run it like that. I don't have high hopes since Gruul on the draw feels really rough, but we'll see. Okay, so I don't mind this hand. Being able to brainstorm early. We'll probably go Island, Glacial Fortress, or maybe Island, Irrigate Farmland. We'll have a look. But yeah, we'll keep this. Hopefully we can find something to do. Okay, Llanowar Elves. So land situation is sorted at the moment. Okay, opponent giving it haste. Yep. Smack us for free. Devout Decree's okay, so I guess let's just put 2 lands back. We're going to be drawing them anyway. I guess we will Devout Decree here and put that plains to the bottom. We're essentially just hoping that this is enough. If our opponent has a questing beast here, let's say they don't. Let's say our opponent had nothing. Okay, opponent had nothing with 4 mana. I don't really want to counter this, since absorbs our only thing that we've got at the moment. And next turn we can, so we'd have to take the 3 damage this turn, and then take 3 additional damage next turn. So we'd be falling to 10, but it could mean we could cycle in our opponent's end step next turn. And providing that doesn't go to plan, then I guess we could baffling end it on the turn after. We also get to cycle Irrigated Farmland now, so it's not... Do we just want to go to 19 though and just absorb this now? And then next turn we get to make a 2-2. I feel like it's safer just to counter this. Yeah. I don't know, feels rough. I think the fact our opponent had nothing to do with 4 mana makes me kind of want to counter it. Sweet, maybe our opponent was a little bit flooded, and it was obviously the right choice to counter the Gallia there, since it led to a concession. But yeah, let's go on to the next game. So, on the draw, I think we're going to keep this hand. We're not going to shock this Hallowed Fountain just to be able to cycle a cast out, but we do get to hold up Sensor turn 2, maybe baffling end something, and then cycle these cast outs depending on what our opponent's up to. So, let's have a look. Opponent's just making a decision. So, they've mulliganed to 6. Okay, looks like we might be against Gruul again. I'm going to cycle the Sensor now. Probably baffling ending our opponent's turn 2. I guess this is fine to play tapped. Since Sensor could have some value, our opponent really does want to curve out. Oh, looks like we're not against Gruul. Selesnya instead. I guess I should have gathered that from the pathway. Okay, so opponent didn't want to use our Llanowar Elves mana, so now we're in a position where we'll either censor what they do, if they curve it. Okay, so like dinosaurs? We'll have a look. Okay, just gonna cycle twice here. I guess we'll cycle a Sensor first. Triple cast out. Definitely get rid of some of these. And yeah, I think we'll... This gets... So it deals damage to the creature that enters, and then this gets +2. It's probably worth just baffling in this, and then cycle one of our cast outs or Sensor. Okay, Mutate. So I can imagine Cast Out's going to be okay. This is not a list I've had much experience against. So, could board wipe? If our opponent goes for another mutate creature and we cast out in response to the mutate creature, they'll still get to keep the creature. So we will have to let it resolve. But I think that's fine. We'll try a cast out. And then if it doesn't work for whatever reason, I guess we can untap Wrath of God. And if our opponent chooses to play a few more creatures now, we'll probably just maybe cycle the Shark Typhoon, soak up the damage in the Great Horn, and then go for the Wrath on our turn. Ooh. So it's going to give it Trample. And it's going to destroy the Baffling End, which is going to mean our opponent gets the 3/3. Cool, not something I don't think I've played against this yet. Oh wait, no, we're going to get a 3/3 from it. Oh, sweet. I actually don't mind this that much. So yeah, we'll let this go, and then we will just cast this out, I guess. I guess a bit annoying we're down on a land, but at least we can use the mana this turn. I guess we want to go get a plane so we can definitely cast this Wrath of God. Oh! Oof. Yeah, big mistake on my part. Should have gone for the tutored first. It's a big mistake, and it's going to cost us 6 life here. Should have tutored with the Fable Passage prior, so the land entered untapped. Yeah, that's a pretty big mistake. Obviously, if you're playing this list, hopefully you don't make a similar one. So I think we're just going to cast out now. Take away our opponent's mutate for it. They could have a haster, so we'll sit back. But yeah, that costs us big time. That costs us 6 life. I think just going to cast out and then brainstorm. And again, I mean, our opponent could have a haster. We're going to win this in the late game, I think. So happy to sit back and just chump block something. Had we not have made the massive mistake of not tutoring our land first, then we'd probably be attacking now. And draw one of these again. I guess Teferi tap land? Could just Teferi tuck. It looks like our opponent doesn't have much without Mutate going on, so kind of happy to just tuck here, actually.
If you show remorse,
I am aware of how much damage we are missing out on as well. But I think it's fine. We don't need to pressure our opponent that much. I think just sitting back, protect our Teferi on this turn. Our opponent could have like a stomp, but looks like they're predominantly a mutate list. Sweet. Even through our faux pas, we were able to pull it out there. So what are we against? So Aethergust is probably going to be one of our best friends here. Yeah, it looks like our opponent's just like pretty bog standard mutate list with this Sawtusk Demolisher. Right, so how do we want to do this? We don't want Grafdigger's Cage. Red or black? I think most of our opponents' things were green. Definitely want Aethergust, I think. And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Cast Out worked really well there, though. I'm sure our opponent has the 3 mana 4/4 Reach Trample, maybe, that destroys an artifact or enchantment when it mutates. So maybe Cast Out isn't great. But that being said, like, our opponent's in a position there where they have to keep a creature on the field. As long as we can answer what our opponent's putting on the field, probably want this Doomscar, then probably pretty good. Maybe we'll trim like a Cast Out. Since the instant speed nature of it, I think, doesn't matter too much. And maybe cut a Baffling End as well. A lot of the time, we don't need to answer our opponent's creature's instant speed, because, like I said in the last game, if they play a creature and then mutate onto that creature, if we cast that in response, they don't get the mutate trigger, but they do get to keep the creature. So, I don't know. Depends on what they're doing. It's situational. But let's run it like this and see how we get on. So we're going to hope that a turn 3 Doomscar is going to be enough. I might hold this Irrigated Farmland a cycle, and I think knowing that we just top deck the Hallowed Fountain, we're definitely going to do that. Oh, it's a goodie. Indestructible. Kind of wishing we held up Sensor now. So yeah, our Doomscar is not going to work on this, and whenever a creature deals combat damage to player, you get to draw a card, so it's going to count for both of our opponent's creatures. Oof. So if we're Doomscarring here, our opponent still gets to draw a card. We've just taken out the Marauding Raptor. I think we're just holding up Sensor cycle. Try and get a little bit more value. Opponent's going to get to draw 2 cards though, but I mean, there's not really much we can do about that. Outside of a Cast Out or Teferi, we can't really answer this. Yeah, punished for tapping down with the Sensor there. Yeah, I think we're going to hold open Sensor or cycle Sensor and Irrigate Farmland. And I guess next turn we could always make a 2-2 and then we can just block this, maybe. Yeah, this feels really bad though. Really good mutate target as well. Okay, so opponent's not going to play into a Doomscar or Wrath of God. Fortunately, we're stuck drawing some lands. I think we're just going to make a 2-2 here. Really need to find some non-lands. No, deck is persistent to keep giving us lands. Gotta try and stem the bleeding the best we can, but our opponent's got 8 cards. Oof. And this has Indestructible as well. Okay, so big mistake on the Sensor. Indestructible, we can still block it. Okay. So opponent's going to get to draw another card still. We'll block the Starix and we'll hold open Absorb. I'd really like to cast with Enchantress though and try and find a cast out for this. Yeah, it's a pretty good Indestructible threat to mutate onto. I think our opponent's in a position at the moment where they just don't have to. Okay, they're going to mutate, so they're going to get to activate the Starix some more. I think we have to activate Enchantress here. But we definitely need our cast outs. Oh, what is this? Lightning Helix. Next time they mutate, though, they'll get to bring back the Llanowar Elves, but I guess as long as they have the Raptor in play. Yeah, I think we have to just let this go and try and find a cast out. I'm going to take 4, though. Opponent gets to trigger the Sterix again. Okay, so yeah, let's go Vantress, but I think even with 1 out of range. Yeah, I mean, we can cycle and block, but it's pretty much a lost cause at this point. I mean, we can board wipe, I guess. This is double strike, though. Yeah, we're just going to scoop it up. We could have board wiped, maybe, and made a 1-1. Don't know if this had trample. I mean, yeah, we could have 3-mana board wiped, maybe, and then held up a Shark Typhoon to cycle, but that did not feel good. Let's bring back in that cast out, and I think we're going to bring in Devout Decree, since if our opponent mutates onto this, then they change the colour of it. Don't know how good Devout Decree will be. What do we want to cut? Maybe Shark Typhoon's not great here. It's a pretty good way of closing the game, but maybe not. Searchers Canto still feels okay. Maybe better than Narset. Opponent's not really drawing cards. Yeah, I mean, got to cut 1 card, maybe like a Censor. Unfortunately, we're not really able to keep a 1-lander, so we'll mulligan this. Yeah, I think keep a 2-lander. Probably putting, I guess, Doomscar on the bottom. Since we have our turn 2 play with Aether Gust. Just really want to find lands here. I don't want to have to cycle this cast out since it's going to be so important later on. Yeah, I mean, could just Aether Gust this. Slow our opponent down if their plan is to play the 4-drop again. Opponent's just deciding whether they'd like to plop this. Okay, unfortunately, we are going to miss our land drops. Just going to cycle Shark Typhoon here to make no Shark a 0-0. Opponent did decide to place it on the bottom. But yeah, we get to get 2 draws to try and find the land here, and then Devout Decree, I guess, can scry and hopefully find one. I'm going to cycle here either way. Surprising our opponent just does nothing here. Okay, they've got Lightning Helix. Nice. Oh, I think I'm going to cycle now. Okay, at least we found a land. Okay, please land off the top. Ho ho ho! Ask and thou shalt receive. Yeah, we'll just do this now. And then if our opponent plays another one, I guess we can, if we find land, to Fairy Tuck. I don't think our opponent had too many hasters. Lead the Stampede, some pretty good card advantage. Just grab the 1 though. Don't really want our opponent to be able to mutate. I guess we'll represent a counterspell. Was this mutate cost 4? So can Devout Decree that. Gonna try and hit lands. Not really worried about Shark Typhoon getting the 2-2 at the moment. Don't really want to allow opponent to untap with this. Now we've hit our land drops, would we rather Wrath the board? And then save Devout Decree for a turn where we can do something else in the same turn. This is not flied as a... Yeah, I think we're just going to Wrath the board. I mean, it's going to be pretty deadly if our opponent can mutate with this. Need to hopefully find a counter spell. I guess free drop here is bad. Yep. This is not good. I assume our opponent places this on top as well, so Devout Decree is not going to work. Okay. Opponent gets to cast a Lead the Stampede as well. Yeah, not good. Oh, pesky deck. So I guess our plan could be play Teferi, tuck this, and then block here. Our opponent's going to Starix and get to flip one card, I guess, and then we can Wrath of God. This is Flying Trample First Strike. I don't feel our options are that great at the moment. If we board wipe, then our opponent's going to get to draw a card. Really hoping that our opponent mutates onto this at some point. I think we're going to go with that.
I won't hide from the world any longer.
Yeah, and we're just going to hope to find a cast out. Because the alternative is, I guess, like just board wipe. Our opponent gets to draw an additional card, and then we can Teferi tuck this once it's got some extra things on top of it. Okay, so Teferi down. Okay, at least we can Devout Decree this now. Yeah, I think I'd rather save 6 than deal them 3. Maybe should have Fable Passaged first. Oh, Teferi's great. Okay, so now that our opponent was able to... they changed the colour for us so kindly. I don't hate our position. Okay, so opponent's empty-handed, so I like just a Teferi tuck here. And providing our opponent doesn't top deck a Lightning Helix or some way to deal Teferi damage this turn, then I think we're in a really good position, since we can untap and wipe away whatever our opponent has. And if they do have a way to answer Teferi this turn, then I guess we're left with a Wrath of God. Okay, sweet. Yeah, all good. And I guess we don't really like thinning the deck's not really a thing, and I think we should save this maybe for a brainstorm.
Let's skip to the good part.
Yeah, and we'll definitely save this to cycle. But we are like one counter spell away from closing the game away. And our opponent's in a position now where if we can answer each of our opponent's threats, then we'll do this now in case we find a memory lapse. Then our opponent won't be able to mutate. And with double Search Canter activations, you've got to believe... We're going to do it now, since we want all of the mana for Search Canter. But you've got to believe we'll be able to close the game with Search Canters. So let's draw before we activate Azcanter.
We need to move quickly.
Yeah, so we got Doomscar as an answer. So we'll take Absorb, I guess. and then just wipe the board. Sweet. And just moving up, we said it, we were really close to diamond, and now we're in diamond. So let's keep going and let's see if it gets harder. So freshly into diamond here, and I think we're going to mulligan this hand away. Land situation's a little bit dire. Pretty much the opposite now, but I think we're going to keep this. Probably put like a plains on the bottom and look to cycle this irrigated farmland. Okay, so maybe Golgari Elves. Hopefully slowing our opponent down with memory lapse. It's going to be good. Oh, opponent's off to the races. Do we want to take the clan caller away? I think it's going to be better to memory lapse something. I think we can take our 5. Yeah, happy to slow our opponent here. Oh, boy. Yeah, okay. It's probably better to not memory lapse this turn, since we cannot counter because of the shepherd. Bit of a mistake on my part. Probably going to keep the farmland now, just to make sure we can Wrath on the next turn. And we're looking at taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on our next turn and falling to 10. Yeah, so maybe you should have last turn baffling ended the shepherd. Just going to hope that we don't take too much damage this turn. But there's a good chance our opponent can contribute to the board without needing to use any of the cards in their hand. Okay, so going to take a bit here. Okay, so opponent's tapped down. I'd like to believe that this Wrath of God is just going to be nail in the coffin. And I know we made the mistake with the memory lapse. Obviously, we realised, hopefully, before we countered the spell. But I'm not even sure it's correct to baffling end the shepherd on turn 2. It's probably better to just wait for the Wrath. Okay, yeah, now we're in the money. I guess they could, or it's such probably a mistake playing Teferi here. We should have waited one more turn. If our opponent has a collected company here. Yeah, should have waited one more turn. Hopefully we don't die as a result. Yeah. Okay, so unfortunate we're going to lose Teferi because of our mistake. But we should have waited one turn and then absorbed the collected company, and then on the turn after played Teferi with memory lapse up. I still like our position. It's just going to take us quite a bit longer to get out of here. If Teferi was away, we would close the game pretty quickly. So yeah, let's just wipe away the board. Now if our opponent has a collected company, at least we can memory lapse that back. Yeah. And if they choose to do it main phase, then we have the Wrath of God. Opponent's not going to. So we just get to absorb this and then absorb the next thing our opponent does. I find a lot of the time you just need the cheap counter spell with memory lapse. It doesn't really matter that it puts it back on top. And yeah, opponent's going to scoop it up there. Kind of makes sense. That many board wipes back to back is difficult for most people to handle when you're a creature deck like that. I know our opponent has collected company, but I still think we're going to put Cage out and just bring the Ether Gusts in. And I don't think we really need anything else. Shark Typhoon not at its best here. Maybe just cut the cast outs actually. Just run like that. Shark Typhoon's not great. Maybe actually we just want the cast out instead. Just as a cheap cycler. Because Shark Typhoon's only going to be closing the game and really good in this matchup when we're casting it for, or cycling for like 5 or 6. But yeah, against Elves, let's go. So, one of those hands that if we brainstorm and find 3 non-land permanents, then we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But the difference to that is, I guess we can cycle cast out to get through them a bit quicker, and then we have a second brainstorm. So, in the top 8 cards, we're hopefully going to find lands. And the rest of this hand's really good. Aethergust is going to slow our opponent probably just enough that the Wrath of God's going to get him. So, we'll keep this. Hoping, I guess, our opponent doesn't have Four.Vs. Yeah, we'll pay the 2 life to be able to brainstorm here. Double Wrath of God makes me feel safer against them Four.Vs. So, really hoping we find untapped land here. Oh, close. I guess we'll put 2 board wipes back on top. So yeah, going to be a little bit slow here, I think. Really needed to find an untapped land there. Because our Baffling End. Baffling End would have been quite nice. I think we're just going to cycle with Cast Out here. Okay. So opponent's going quite wide. So taking 3 here, and then I assume our opponent's going to play like a Lord next turn. I guess we can Aethergust if they have a Lord. So we know 1, so Brainstorm would be drawing 2 cards. I guess it's better to... I guess it doesn't matter, because we could Brainstorm in the hope of finding a non-land, so we could cycle Cast Out and still Aethergust next turn, but then we'll still be in a position where Irrigated Farmland... we need to play Irrigated Farmland before we can play our Wrath of God, so we'll just cycle Cast Out. So we'll see how much pressure our opponent puts us under. I'd like to think in the top 3 cards. Okay, so... yeah, I'm going to take this. And hopefully we're going to Brainstorm here, just looking for a land. We're in a really bad position if our opponent goes land pass. Untap land pass, because they could have Collected Company. But it doesn't look like they're going to have a Collected Company. But I think I want all of the cards in our hand right now. So I really don't want to shuffle with this Fabled Passage. Yeah, I feel good now. Especially with knowing we have another board wipe. Maybe should have put the Aethergust or Baffling End on top, just to protect ourselves from this Four.Vs. I think our hand at this point is pretty Four.Vs proof, though. I'm not sure what you do from the opponent here, because... okay, I don't know if we're going to Aethergust this now. I think being our only protection, we're not going to Aethergust now. Well, I mean, we could Aethergust, and then we've got Memory Lapse. Kind of like getting down Search Cancer. How scary is it of our opponent tutoring for a card? I don't think I'm that scared of it, providing we have Aethergust and Memory Lapse still going. And if we cast one of these with the Fabled Passage, Search Cancer is going to flip. Okay. In my experience against creature matchups like Elves, we're normally pretty favoured, I think, because we've got early interaction with Baffling End and Ether Gust and things like that, it's pretty easy to stay alive until you reach turn 4 when your Wrath is available. Against Lurrus of the Dream Den, I think we can keep this hand. We get some free draws of Shark Typhoon. Hopefully we can do this for 1 or 2 when we find a land. But providing our opponent doesn't have a turn 1 Thoughtseize, then Searchlight Canter is going to do some work coming down on turn 2. And if our opponent Thoughtseizes and takes Searchlight Canter, then I guess we have an answer to what our opponent's up to. And Baffling End is one of the best answers against all of the Lurrus lists, I think, since it pretty much answers whatever they've got. So we'll keep this. I think the problem with this hand, we just want to find lands. Okay, let's see what our opponent takes. I assume they take the Searchlight Canter. It makes a bit more sense. So it's going to be a bit more of a problem. And it looks like our opponent's on the Pyromancer list. Oof. And take this Baffling End as well. Yeah, double hand. Oh, take Teferi, okay. Yeah, double hand hate feels bad. Go get a red source. Yeah, and I guess we're just cycling Shark Typhoons here. Our opponent might be on like a Death Shadow list. Okay, so we get to Baffling End away this Pyromancer, Arcanist, and our opponent knows that we've got that. They deliberately chose not to take it. But we're sort of forced to do this since our opponent has Thoughtseize. Save the Fable Passage in case we end up drawing a Brainstorm. Yeah, I mean, we could cycle and then maybe we hit something. Probably just let our opponent take it. If we were cycling the Shark Typhoon for 1 at the least, then it's worth cycling. But I don't know if we've got anything to gain. I guess our plan now is to go wide. We had an okay hand, providing it was a little bit expensive. Our opponent might be on Death Shadow, which I think is quite realistic. In which case, they don't mind hitting us with this Thoughtseize just to lower their own life total a bit. Gonna see a... okay, no. Singing Crocs is gonna come up. Okay, just going to get that back. Okay, opponent's got the whole shebang of drawing and looting. Okay, Memory Lapse is a good one. I mean, opponent is at 9. I know if they're on a Death Shadow list, they'll want to lower their life total, but we are eventually going to go around them with 1/1s. I assume our opponent wants to Village Rites, so I don't really want to let them do this. And allowing our opponent to draw and claim the Firstborn again. It's not awful. Okay, so they're going to mill it now. Maybe... okay. Okay, so opponent's plan, I guess, was to... oh, there's the Croxer. Opponent has 16 cards, so it doesn't really matter about filling the graveyard. I think I'm just going to Field of Ruin to, I guess, thin our list. Opponent has no cards in hand and all of these in graveyard, so if we find our Grafdigger's Cage, then we're laughing. I think I'll cycle. I guess if our opponent goes for Croxer without... oh, no attacks. No attacks. If our opponent goes for Croxo without laying a land, drawing land here, then at least we get 2 cents of that. I really want our opponent to cast this Croxo and then lay a land. Looks like our opponent's a little bit scared of their life total, or maybe not. No blocks. Okay, so we know our opponent's last card in hand is not a land. Oh! Okay, are they going to have an answer to this? Cage opponent. You got one? You got an answer to this? I mean, we can beat a Pyromancer about 1/1s. Cage was excellent. One of in the list. Okay, opponent, it looks like they're just trying to slow us down. We are on a pretty comfortable 18, though. They're even going to give us the 1/1 back at the end of turn. Yep. Shark Typhoon's a good one. Opponent just puts Lurrus into hand. So yeah, make a 5/5. And then we just attack with everything. Oh, that cage coming up at that moment in time was perfect. That was brilliant. We're obviously going to bring in this extra cage. Devout Decree feels good. Ether Gust. How much red are we facing down? I mean, already looks like a lot of red. Cruxer. Even like Faithless Looting's okay. Yeah, I mean, they actually have a sizable amount of red stuff. We'll have a look. Probably cut Narset. I mean, it stops like village rights and things like that, but we're going to have to make cuts somewhere. I can see Cast Out's not been great. Searchlight Canter is still going to be good. Maybe cut like a Wrath, because we're bringing in Devout Decrees, Baffling Ends. I mean, Wraths are actually quite good. Probably cut like a Shark Typhoon instead. Wiping the Pyromancer tokens away. This is a matchup, I never know how it feels. Maybe it's like 50-50. Maybe we're a little bit unfavoured, but Cage came through at the right moment in time. Let's hopefully we can do that again. Okay, so providing our opponent doesn't have a turn 1 Four.Vs, then we might be okay, because Brainstorm can at least protect what we've got going on. And it can find us something else to do. I don't really want to mulligan against a deck with Inquisition of Kozilek and Four.Vs. Probably just playing this tapped. Gonna cycle this Irrigated Farmland. Yeah, probably just land and pass. So our opponent's going to get to Inquisition us again, but there's like really little we can do about this. They get to take our Absorb. We don't really have like a solid game plan against what our opponent's doing. It's just do our best. So I guess we are going to want to hit land drops at some point. So we'll play... I guess they don't know about this. I guess we'll cycle this since we have the Field of Ruin. And we're really hoping our opponent doesn't go Four.Vs into attack with the Arcanist and Four.Vs us again. My opponent's giving this emote thing. They keep giving it to us. Okay, we'll just mute them, I guess. And yeah, let's just wipe the board. And if our opponent goes Luris, play something at the graveyard, I guess we'll just wipe the board again. Love to play Teferi here, but I think we're going to have to wipe the board, otherwise be under far too much pressure. And we don't really want our opponent getting loads of value out of their graveyard. Okay, opponent's going to do some drawing. So if our opponent has a Four.Vs here, we get to protect our hand. Keep this Teferi safe. Yeah, so we'll put these two back on top, and I guess we'll just lose our Wrath of God. And we'd like to draw Teferi first. Pretty good application for Brainstorm then. Our opponent gets to take our Four.Vs, but they don't get to take our Teferi. They get to take our Wrath of God even. Yeah, discard Fable Passage. Already got enough cards in the graveyard for Search for Scanter. Looks like our opponent's going to be able to get back Croxer again next turn. So I think making a 1/1. It's making a 1/1 better, or do we just discard? Yeah, I think making a 1/1's better, and we'll just discard the card that we draw. At least it'll be a chump blocker for the Croxer, providing we can't find another answer. Though a good solution might just be to tuck Croxer. So hoping we don't have to discard Grafdigger's Cage. That would be worst case scenario. Memory Lapse is a bad one, I guess, but we don't lose the free life. Okay, I think I like just tucking Croxer here. And we're not going to... we'll play land out. And we'll attack. I don't think our opponent has too many hasty threats. I guess maybe the reason not to attack is if they have claim to fame. Yeah, if our opponent has claim to fame here, we feel really bad. Okay, I think we could scry with Castle Vantress, which I think is quite good, but I don't want to allow our opponent to get back this Croxer. So I'm probably going to blow up one of their lands here. Like, it's very possible they could draw into another Croxer, but let's make them work for a little bit. Okay, they got rid of the Abrade. Okay, at least they didn't have enough mana to cast Fame in the same turn. So we're unable to scry here plus find a board wipe, so we'll just have to tick up.
Let's skip to the good part.
We'll sit back. Our opponent can kill Teferi if they'd like to, which I think they'd probably elect to do. It's a shame we didn't... maybe could have activated Castle Vantress before we did our untap. Yeah, going to lose Teferi, unfortunately. I assume our opponent goes with everything, and we... Okay. So we lose Teferi either way. Doesn't matter what we do. So we'll save our life and block the Pyromancer.
This is hardly my worst defeat.
Devout Decree's okay, but we're only going to get one draw, so may as well, I guess we'll scry and take out this other Pyromancer. Board wipe would be more preferable, but I think we can take the Scry from Devout Decree. And then we get to Scry 2 with Vantress as well. Let's... Yeah, we'll keep land in hand. Just keep a little bit of information hidden. Okay, Sigil Supply is actually quite good here, since if they mill a Croxer, we're in a bit of trouble. We're also taking 4 returns, so we need to find an answer to what our opponent's got going quickly. And board wipe's not even that great, because our opponent will get to mill 3 more. Oof. I think we're going to keep the cage. And hope to find a board wipe this turn. Because I think cage is just going to... We're going to lose the late game without cage. We're in range of dying to a Croxer just cast as well. None of these are good enough. I think we can scry an upkeep and still hit board wipe. I think we can, yeah. 5, yeah. So I put both of them to the bottom. Let's scry. None of these are good enough. Okay, 1 draw. Nope, baffling end, not enough. Sweet. Probably some things we could have done to change the outcome of that. I don't think we still want to bring in the Doomscar just because that worked there. Just because we really need... just because we really need a board wipe doesn't mean that we need to bring in the Doomscar. We could have found a Wrath of God. I think, how many board wipes did we go through? We went through 3, to be fair. I think our opponent may have taken 1 at some point. But I think we're just running it back. Kind of like how the list went. It's just a game of, can we find our cage? Can we survive what our opponent's up to? We don't have a solid game plan apart from just try and stick it to Fairy, make a big shark or something. So yeah, we'll just run it back. So this hand is really interactive, and I think we can hold our opponent off for a long time. Maybe long enough to actually find lands. So I think we are going to keep this, but we really don't want our opponent to have a turn 1 Thoughtseize or Inquisition or Duress or something like that. Because this Searcher's Canter, we're going to have to rely on this pretty strong to find our land drops. So here's hoping that we can dodge the Hand Hate spell 1 time. Looks like a nope. Nope. Yeah. So I assume our opponent just takes Searcher's Canter here. And then we're just at the mercy of our top decks to find lands. Opponent's taking a second to think about it, but I think it's pretty trivial what you take there. Okay, so more interaction's great, but we really do want to find land drops. We get to slow our opponent quite a bit. Okay, land is great. Let's just keep drawing lands. This is not a list that I assume is running Thought Distortion, so be okay. Yeah, let's just... I think we're just going to try and just slow our opponent here. Yeah, I think having cage down is probably better than having it in our hand. Now we've drawn cage, I think we let this go and we use our counter spells to protect cage or further what, or try and slow our opponent in like a meaningful way. We know our opponent has Bedevil and a Braid. That's what we've seen so far. The argument could have been actually to memory lapse there, just to... Yeah, I think we'll Aether Gust this. Oh wait, what am I talking about? Yeah, of course they can't get it back because of cage. Whew, so many mistakes sometimes. Yeah, I think the argument there, had cage not been on the field, we would have Aether Gusted. I think just allowing our opponent to take a look here is fine. We need to hold open our answers in case our opponent has an Abrade. I'd hate to memory lapse this and then our opponent just shoots our cage. It might have been better as well to use memory lapse there, just to, like for example, our opponent put on bottom. Memory lapse just to have 1 and 1, so we have an Aether Gust and a memory lapse, so we have some flexibility is what we'd like to do. Okay, so we're going to give our opponent opportunity to use a Braid here, or Bedevil. But I think if they use their Bedevil onto Fairy, then we 1 for 1 them. Or 2 for 1 them, that's fine. And if they use an Abrade on Cage, then, okay, hopefully we find an answer. And can hold them back with our active Teferi. So yeah, I think that's fine. They can't flash it back just yet. Happy to take the 3 damage. So Teferi is one of our best draws here. I think we'll hold this in hand to another Cruxer. And we'll just take the 3. And these are like exclusively. I mean, our opponent's passing through. I think we're gonna have to do this at some point. I think we've got 2 counter spells. We're fine. Bottoming the Absorb. Could start making 1/1s, but I think we're probably going to go for the Dig for the Shark Typhoon and Teferi. I mean, 1/1s with Castle Locthwain in play actually starts adding a bit of pressure. Yeah, I think actually we're gonna make 1/1s instead. And Memory Lapse is hopefully going to buy us enough time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we'll shock in here. Spend the 2 life so we can activate Castle Ardenvale as well as use Memory Lapse if we need to. But opponent can't really activate Castle anymore, I don't think. Absorb is perfect. Can absorb the Lurrus now. And hopefully this is just going to be enough. Since we know our opponent didn't draw anything relevant, and we know that the next spell we memory lapse is going to be an entire turn wasted. If our opponent had a Thoughtseize or something, they would have used it. So, yeah, yet another example of showing when memory lapse is really good. Just locking our opponent down for a few turns. Yeah, we can keep this, knowing that we can cycle these irrigated farmlands. Okay, Forest makes me feel kind of good with this new Azorius list. Okay, so Gruul. So we're either going to slow our opponent down a little bit with memory lapse or cycle the irrigated farmland. Not too sure. Probably going to protect our life total here instead. If our opponent spends the next turn just Gruul Spellbreakering, then I'm kind of happy just to get my 3-for-1 value with Wrath of God. And it saves us quite a bit of life. Yeah, opponent definitely gives it haste. But we're taking 7 here, so falling to 9. So it means we're not dead to double Questing Beast. And fortunately, our opponent's going to be they should be kind of out of gas after this Wrath of God. So we can survive a single hit from Questing Beast. Even 2, I guess. But yeah, opponent will just exile our Memory Lapse in response. Yep, so Questing Beast. So we don't have an answer to it. Oh, I guess that's a pretty good answer. I actually think we need to though Teferi Tuck doesn't feel great because it will die to so many hasters. I still think we have to do that. That's better than Shark Typhooning and chump blocking with the Shark Typhoon. So we'll Teferi Tuck and cross our fingers that we get to untap with him. I don't have high hopes. There's so many things our opponent could have. And we know our opponent went first, so we know they don't have lands in hand. These are at least 2 non-lands. Love to see a Pelt Collector at this point. Okay, so opponent was deciding, do I want to play the Bone Crusher Giant or do I want to Stomp? So making a 4/4 feels good. Opponent could be stuck with an Embercleave in hand. Yeah, 4/4 feels good, being the exact amount, obviously, that can trade with a Questing Beast. Winning game 1 against Gruul, I think, is really important. We've already played a Gruul game today. So yeah, I think we're still going to make our 4/4 here. If our opponent has a Embercleave, then we will trade with a Pelt Collector, which is unfortunate, but we still get to Memory Lapse the Questing Beast. And it means our opponent isn't playing a Bone Crusher Giant. Unfortunate as well, making it looks like our opponent has an Embercleave or a Stomp. Yeah, Embercleave. So we're going to trade here. We don't take any trample damage though, so... Ooh.
Keep up the pace.
Untapped land that we don't have to pay life for would have been nice there. We could have Memory Lapsed as well as hold up cycling. Okay, so it's really dependent on what our next few draws are. Can I just buy ourselves a second here? Okay, I'm pretty sure I put a pause in our upkeep, but nevertheless, I guess not.
You know what? I'm not done.
Probably just cycle here. I think I'm going to save the Irrigated Farmland to cycle. We've got enough lands. We just need to make sure we hit a stream of counter spells here. Yeah. And we'll just trade with this Questing Beast. It's opponent deciding whether they'd like to attack into a Shark Typhoon or whether they want to wait a turn for the Embercleave. I don't think waiting benefits them, since Teferi could then tuck. It leaves them open to a Wrath of God. You got to swing for us and just hope we don't have it here. So I think I will cycle only for 4. We've got perfect information, and then this way if we hit a sensor, then we'll cycle the sensor as well. Or even better, we'll cycle a Brainstorm. Or play the Brainstorm. Sweet. Yeah, like I said, winning game 1 against Gruul is really important. We played a Gruul game earlier, which we ended up winning. But it was pretty close. So I think same game plan what we did last time. Can't remember it exactly. Maybe we... I think Search Cantus can be really good. We'll cut Narset instead. I can't remember what we cut last time. I did decide in game 3 of the Gruul last time that Cast Out was actually quite good to answer Questing Beasts. Cut Shark Typhoon and I guess 2 Sensors. I think the rest of the stuff's all good. So providing our opponent doesn't go turn 1 Pelt Collector into double Burning Tree, then this hand's probably okay. It's a little bit risky, but we have our board wipe, we have some counter spells, so I'm probably just going to keep this. We're just praying to get to turn 4. This is definitely a hand that we can see the losing side of it. Really hoping our opponent just goes turn 1 tap land. Oh, okay, yeah, turn 1 tap land, let's go. So we are definitely going to lead with turn 2 Search Cantor, I feel. Hopefully they don't have like double this. We'll see actually, because oof. Rolling Vortex is going to place some pressure. So if we find land here, I think we'll probably just keep up Memory Lapse instead. Yeah, I think we're going to just keep up Memory Lapse. I really don't want to take more. If our opponent goes Gruul Spellbreaker here, I don't want to take unnecessary damage. Yeah, Rolling Vortex is a good one. Fortunately, we did keep in the cast outs though, so we do have an answer to this. Yeah, just going to slow our opponent the best we can. I think we actually should have played tap land there. But if our opponent's plan is to play a non-hasty creature here, then like Scavenging Ooze, then it just plays into our board wipe next turn. So I'd rather start getting my scries down, because we need to find an answer to this Rolling Vortex. Yeah, okay, so take a bit of damage. Need to graveyard that. So our opponent gets to bring us down to 3 cards and graveyard after the Wrath of God. Fortunately, our opponent doesn't have a lot of red mana, so actually these absorbs, if we can just get 1 absorb, the life gain off of it, then I feel okay. And like I said, we 100% should have played Irrigate Farmland beforehand, so we had an untapped land here. Yeah, I'm gonna library that. This doesn't feel good though. Not gonna lie. I really wanted to use the cast out on the Rolling Vortex, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to. Hopefully the opponent just passes here and doesn't play something second main phase. As long as it's a free drop or less, I guess. Oh, cutting it close. I guess we library that. Per, I guess, Memory Lapse, Fable Passage. Well, I guess actually we're trying to find a specific thing, so we should probably keep the Fable Passage, put the Glacial Fortress. And I guess Baffling End back. I mean, our opponent beats us here if they just pass turn. Actually, no. Yeah, scratch that. They beat us either way. Because they can just play the Bone Crusher Giant and then pay the mana, so we can't gain life. Close. I think really close game. Or Ramanat Ruins just does it. Yeah, no way to put a spell on the stack. If we could... If our opponent didn't have a red up last turn, we could have maybe Baffling End, counter our own Baffling End. But as it goes, Ramanat Ruins is going to finish us off. Really close game. I think we needed our opponent not to have a Questing Beast when they had one. Okay, so Rolling Vortex. I think we're going to bring in Heliod's Intervention for that. I think just having some passive life gain might be okay as well. I say passive, have pretty strong life gain. And just cut this extra sensor. Yeah, I think we can keep this. We've got the Brainstorm Fable Passage combo. Going to lay tap land turn 1 into Search for Azcanta. Depending on what our opponent does, I guess. But probably just Search for Azcanta and then Brainstorm on the turn after. Hopefully, again, we don't go into a double Burning Tree Emissary. No, opponent's got it. Yeah, I think similar start to what our opponent had last time. I think we can... I mean, we need to find lands, don't we? Yeah, I'll probably just keep this, actually. I think maybe we just save 2 life and just Baffling End here. No, I think we'll represent Sensor and Memory Lapse and try and find a board wipe for the next turn. I don't think we're going to get anywhere by just playing a Baffling End and doing nothing else. Sure, our opponent's got probably a Stomp, which is why it's pausing. So I assume our opponent just passes here and then goes for a Stomp end step. Or if they definitely want it to resolve, they can go for it now, I guess. Pretty good one. Probably just pop in... I guess we can double Baffling End this turn if we want to. Probably actually cycling a Shark Typhoon. And trade with one of the Burning Trees. Doesn't work out so well if our opponent has a Stomp or has Embercleave. I guess we get to Heliod's Intervention, the Rolling Vortex, and the Embercleave if our opponent goes that way. I think I definitely want to keep Memory Lapse, Heliod's Intervention, and a Shark Typhoon. And we need the land, so probably just putting Shark Typhoon and a Baffling End, I guess. And we'll go get a blue source. I mean, our best draw here is a board wipe, still. Probably going to graveyard that. Still would like to find a board wipe if we can. Yeah, I think we're gonna... We couldn't... I actually think I'll... Baffling End and Memory Lapse, or do we cycle Shark Typhoon? If we cycle Shark Typhoon on the next turn, it means we get to eat one of the Burning Tree Emissaries. If we play Baffling End, we get to still take some damage, but we get to hold up Memory Lapse for this Bone Crusher Giant. Actually, we probably take the shock off the Bone Crusher Giant. Let our opponent have their value, because we can easily answer a 4-3. I think it's fine. We'd rather hold up the Memory Lapse for... I guess our opponent can't actually Embercleave now. Thinking about it. So I think we are going to maybe Memory Lapse this Stomp. Sort of wastes our opponent's turn a little bit. Essentially, they did nothing with their turn, and we know that they're drawing a Bone Crusher Giant again. So, Questing Beast, I guess, is pretty bad for us. Yep. So, board wipe really here. Graveyard that. Bit of a sticky situation we're in. If we cycle the Shark Typhoon and make a 3/3 and don't block the chump block the Questing Beast, then we take 4, then take 1 in our upkeep, and then the Stomp kills us. I guess like in response to the Stomp, we can Heliod's Intervention. It puts us in a bit of a dangerous position. But we can't. We can Baffling End the Burning Tree Emissary, but then we're still in the same position again. We get to cycle Shark Typhoon for 1, but obviously we can't block Questing Beast because it's power 2 or less. Could Heliod's Intervention and gain 6 life, but that just mitigates an attack. We still take the 1 off the Rolling Vortex, so we'll be left on 6, and we don't have an answer to the Rolling Vortex anymore. Okay, I think our plan might be to cycle Shark Typhoon. Cycle Shark Typhoon for 3. Hope to... Yeah, and then if our opponent goes for the Stomp in the upkeep, or in our turn, then at least we have Heliod's Intervention to gain us a bit of life, I guess. I guess actually our opponent can Rolling Vortex, can't they? To stop us gaining the life. So it's Shark Typhoon, Chump Questing Beast. I hope our opponent doesn't have an Ember Cleave. Yeah, it looks like a pretty lose-lose situation from here. Rolling Vortex is doing some work against us. It's not like we don't have the answers to... Oh yeah, and Ramnat Ruins as well, which is going to make this whole plan impossible, I think. So yeah, plan is to chump the Questing Beast here. And I don't know, like I think there's not really a way out of this. It's probably going back a few plays. There was something we could have done. I think we really needed to find one of our board wipes. I guess our hope is... Oh yeah, Ember Cleave's fine, but like, yeah, didn't matter in the end ultimately, but it's good to think about your plays. I think the plan is that our opponent would upkeep Ramnat Ruins us instead of Stomp us, and then we could have gained a load of life in response. But then you're still dead to the Questing Beast and the Burning Tree Emissary on the next turn, but... Sweet, yeah. 2 Gruul matchups we played, ended up losing one, won the other, but you can see how that could have gone. Howdy guys, cheers for making it to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching some more blue-white Azorius Control. It feels like we play blue-white on the channel quite a lot, and it's probably because we do play that. But with Strixhaven, I wanted to show off some of the new cards. So how do we think they did overall? I think Memory Lapse was great. I think you probably want a 4th copy of that. Not sure if whether you're giving up Sensors or something else in the list, because I found it really difficult to make cuts. And you feel like you want all of these cards all the time, or a lot of the time. So let me know what you guys think down below, whether we should be going up in Memory Lapse or down, or whether we should be playing them at all, and what I should cut. In terms of Brainstorm, I think Brainstorm overall is good for the list. It allows us to fix our draws and protect ourselves from Four.Vs. And we've also got the Fable Passage, Brainstorm little combo where we can fetch away any cards we don't want that we put on top. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Brainstorm is an inclusion that should be in the list, or is it just maybe a little bit too inconsistent and we should just be going up on like Memory Lapses, maybe on Narsets, on Teferis, and just maybe go up to 27 land lists so we don't have as many land issues? And maybe it's just like we don't want to be playing Fable Passage. I do think if we're playing Brainstorm, we do need to be playing Fable Passage. I gave Brainstorm a go while I was testing the list without Fable Passage. And yeah, it feels a little bit... without fetch lands, let's say, I don't think Brainstorm's worth playing. I'd probably rather play Opt instead of Brainstorm. But that being said, I think the card overall has its place personally. But let me know what you guys think down below. But yeah, I should make these endings a little bit more concise because I end up just rambling alone. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And hopefully next time we'll be playing some more Jeskai now that we got some new additions to that. And it's been a while since we played Chandra. So hopefully that all works out. But let me know what you guys want to see. As always, do all the normal stuff and I will catch you again next time.